throwing some food facts at you on this Thursday evening. Join us in our journey as we uncover where these interesting gourmets come from around the world with our one and only Chef Matt on 맛대맛. 안녕하세요.
안녕하세요.
How are you doing?
Doing well.
셰프님 조금 살이 빠진 것 같아요.
조금 빠졌어요.
Yes.
아주 조금요.
Yeah, I can see the 헬스장이 효과가 있는 것을
Hopefully.
보고 있습니다.
근데 그거는 the most important thing is that 계속 하는 거는 제일 힘든 거죠.
꾸준함.
Yeah, keep on going. That's the hardest part.
It is. Consistency, persistence. That's why I only work out like hard maybe 2 months out of the year. And then the rest I'm like,
But no matter what it is, it's not, something is still better than nothing.
That is true. And that's what I say about hot sauce as well. I gotta have at least a little hot sauce
맞아요.
in every dish that I have. Now, last week we talked about heat, spice, how we kind of rate it. I guess.
That's right. Last week's episode, if you missed it, was all about measurements.
Measurements.
And we talked about how
go.
to measure spiciness. So we decided, let's just talk a little bit more about spiciness because it's so important to our daily lives.
It is. It really is. Whether you love it or hate it, it's good to know if a dish has spice or not. So let's take a look at our first question.
That's right. While chili peppers may be an important source of spiciness, there is another one that's equally as important. So the question is, where is black pepper from?
어허, black pepper 또는 후추라고 하죠. 후추는 어디에서 왔을까요?
That's right. Where are the origins of what may be one of the most common spices in the world?
It's true. Nobody really asks this question. I'm not curious as to where my pepper comes from. Unless you ask it, then it's actually true. Where is its origin?
That's right. Like you kind of have an idea, but like I didn't really know until I looked it up. Like I had like a feeling it was this country or that country, and it was one of them. But I didn't really know until I looked it up.
Yeah. There was this a really funny video. This comedian was making fun of the Caucasian people. And, he was saying, ooh, put some black pepper or just pepper on it. And they were like, ooh, going spicy tonight. It's true. It's people who can't handle spice, even black pepper. 어떤 사람은 후추도 맵다고 생각하시는 분들도 있죠.
But yeah, it's an important spice. At one point, it was something that, entire kingdoms would send people across the world to find.
Wow.
I was watching a documentary on diamonds the other day. And
as one does.
Yes, as one does. But, on the N platform, there's actually a very interesting, a documentary on diamonds. And someone in the documentary made a really important point. Like, diamonds are a relatively new kind of like status symbol, right? Like it's been less than a couple hundred years since they've been really important. And they say, with like the advent of, synthetic diamonds and man-made diamonds, diamonds now are kind of what like spices were during the age of exploration.
Interesting.
They were at one point something that were, it was only for the wealthy. That only, that was a status symbol. But now it's on every table.
Yeah, that is true. It's become more ubiquitous. I mean, even my 저희 결혼 반지도 랩 다이아이거든요.
네.
So man-grown, it's from the lab. And so nowadays, my jeweler was saying, 요즘에는 그 차이점을 모를 만큼 for the experts,
right.
also they're not able to distinguish what is a naturally grown diamond or a lab diamond.
You'd love this documentary because that's such a big part of it.
Yeah.
Is like the like do they how do you tell, and does the diamond industry even want you to tell?
Yeah, that is true. 왜냐면 제작하면서 진짜 다이아몬드 너무 비싼 거예요. And so she said, go for the lab diamond. I thought, I don't know. 근데 또 그런 차이점을 못 느낄 수 있다고 하니까.
But the thing is that, like, I think there's, like, if you swing too far in one direction, they'll say, like, oh, why diamonds? It's just a shiny rock. The thing is that diamonds are actually beautiful, right? Like, the way that they shine, it's unlike any gem.
Fire라고
Yeah,
하죠.
right. Like, they sparkle in a way that I think, really does speak to you. Although, like, I don't necessarily see, a natural diamond being, better than a man-made diamond. I do want to see diamonds exist. But maybe be better if they're more accessible and more people were able to have them. I don't think it takes away from their beauty at all.
Yeah, sure. Talking about diamonds, We're supposed to be talking about food.
That's right. It's jewelry talk now.
Yeah, but I saw this thing about pure light. So we haven't really had pure light for long, meaning a direct hit. So all the lights that we have bounces off, reflects off certain surfaces, and then you get what we have, light. But so laser beams are like that perfect light.
Right.
So apparently, if you shed perfect light on a number of gemstones, there's going to be two different categories. One category will shine brighter. Like they will shine. The fire is, wow, beautiful. Second category is that it will just turn completely pitch black. Like nothing at all. And one particular gemstone in that category is diamonds. That's why people say there is that argument, well, diamonds aren't really anything. So if you shine perfect light into it, then it just goes pitch black.
That's so interesting. Yeah, diamonds are fascinating, and I think they're beautiful. You know, maybe it's time that more people have them.
Yeah. I mean, let's cut it down so that we can just have more diamonds.
Black pepper and diamonds for everybody.
For everybody. Okay, excuse me. Once again, black pepper, 후추는 어디서 왔을까요?
That's right. Where is black pepper from?
All right, so we said our topic being Scoville Scale. Let's touch upon that once again.
That's right. So just a real quick recap as to what we talked about last week. We talked about the Scoville 지수, the Scoville Scale, you know, which measures heat in Scoville heat units. And what they do is they dissolve the spicy, the chili pepper into a certain amount of alcohol, and then they keep diluting it and measuring it, diluting it, measuring it, and then until it gets to the point where you can't feel any spiciness at all. That's how they determine how spicy something is.
There you go.
So to put into perspective, 0 is pimang, paprika, or bell pepper, depending on where you're from. 2,500 to 10,000 is jalapeno. 100,000 to 350,000, so almost 10 times spicier, is habanero. And then the spiciest official pepper in the world is a little over 2 million.
Oh my gosh. That's incredible. 이거는 진짜 고생인데요. I think that's why people call it like a pain tolerance, right?
Absolutely. It is absolutely, a tolerance for pain, a tolerance for spiciness. Spiciness doesn't have a actual flavor. It's almost more of a texture. Right, because it's a physical sensation.
Okay.
We don't have spicy buds.
Right.
We only can feel it through the tingling sensation, or in some cases, the burning pain.
Yeah. Who thought of this? I mean, how did this come to be? The Scoville test, or how did people decide to make this a standard?
Well, it's been around for a while. So it was invented in 1912. And I think, just like anything else, I think a lot of researchers, they want to be able to quantify something, right? They want to be able to measure something in a number. And this is the most common one, but there are a number of other scales that have been developed to measure spiciness.
그래요?
This one is the most common, and I think because it's been around for a while. Also, it's fairly easy to kind of understand, too. To kind of bring it home, to put it into more perspective, the spicy things that we eat here in Korea, so 청양고추, which is kind of like our standard spicy pepper, most oftentimes green, sometimes red, but most oftentimes we'll have it green. That's 4,000 to 7,000. So it's kind of like one 청양고추 is about the same as like a mid-range jalapeno.
좋아요.
The Sramen, the most common one, is 2,700.
Wow.
And then the regular fire chicken noodles, 4,400. Nuclear fire chicken noodles, 8,600. And then the spiciest instant noodles are said to be 14,440.
Wow.
Scoville heat unit.
Really?
Yeah.
한국 거예요?
한국 거예요. So the one in Korea, the spiciest. This isn't the spiciest in the world, but the spiciest in Korea is 14,444 Scoville 지수. And the thing is, I think that number is kind of has to be fudged a little bit because that number is pretty symbolic right here in Korea. So I think, but our spiciest neighbor is Thailand.
Thailand 좋죠.
Right, and to kind of again to kind of compare things, the hot sauce they're known for, sriracha, is 1,000 to 2,500.
딱 기분 좋은 맛.
I think that is that is probably the most accessible hot sauce out there. You can put it on anything.
Yeah, 진짜 피자에도 올려 먹으면 왜 이렇게 맛있을까요?
맞아요. 그런 그 hot sauce 덕후를 있어요. And a lot of times they'll say to me this isn't a hot sauce. This is a garlic sauce.
Oh.
I think that's what makes it so delicious because it has a stronger garlic flavor than a lot of other hot sauces
그러네요.
do. And then the 태국 태국 고추, the bird eye chili. It's kind of, some of them can be, they're long, some of them are short, some of them are a little bit longer, but they're skinnier than 청양고추.
그쵸.
Also both eaten green and red. In this case, probably 50-50, equally green and red. These are really spicy. 50,000 to 100,000. 5만 to 10만 Scoville heat units.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoy these Thai chili, bird eye chilies. Soy sauce or fish sauce에 담가서
맞아요.
절여서라고 해야 되나요? Kind of let it steep in there for a while. And you just put it on any rice dish, chicken dish, and it's amazing. But it's interesting because 50,000 to 100,000 is a huge jump.
Sure.
Because there are ones that you're like, woo, that's good. And then some where you're just dying.
맞아요. 꽈리고추, I think, is a really is a candidate for this type of gochu, right? Some of them they're like 피망, and some of them your face just turns red.
Yeah, but 중독성이 있어요.
그 스페인에서 padrón 그 pepper라는
okay.
약간 우리나라 그 꽈리고추 먹는 것처럼 they will eat it where so they'll like lightly torch it, grill it, or like saute it, little olive oil, salt, and pepper, and those are kind of similar too. Some of them no heat whatsoever. Other ones, they'll make your head explode.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would depend on how you prepare it too, like eating it fresh versus cooking it, or eating it cold versus eating it piping hot.
Oil is a big one too. Yeah, I think because the capsaicin, the part of the pepper that makes it spicy, is an oil. So that will kind of like, it'll carry it out. Sometimes they'll dilute it. Sometimes they'll concentrate it. It really depends.
Yeah, interesting indeed. We're talking about spice, specifically Scoville units, Scoville heat units. Yes. Stick with us. We still have much more to cover. We'll leave you guys with a question. 후추는 어디에서 왔을까요?
That's right. Where is black pepper from?
Let us know if you have your guesses or your answers. In the meantime, here's Red Hot Chili Peppers. Can't Stop. Red Hot Chili Peppers, throwing it back to Can't Stop. What a great song. We are here talking about spice levels known as the Scoville heat unit, which brings us to our question. Black pepper, 이 후추는 어디에서 왔을까요?
That's right. Where is black pepper from?
All right. Let us know if you have your own guesses. 샵 1013으로 문자 보내주시길 바랍니다. All right. Taking a look at different spices around the world. 한국도 알아봤고 태국도 알아봤는데요.
That's right. So in Korea, we have the 청양고추, which is about 4,000 to 7,000 Scoville heat units. You have the bird eye chili in Thailand, 50,000 to 100,000. We're going to jump up quite dramatically the more west we go. India, a nation known for its spicy food, whether no matter if you're in the northeast, if you're in the north or the south, almost everyone eats some amount of spicy. And while we would have to do 10 whole episodes just on the spicy foods of India,
probably.
Let's talk about what is arguably their most famous pepper. It's the ghost pepper.
I didn't know it came from India.
Yeah, it came from India. So ghost pepper is a name that sounds very Western, but if you go by its original name, the Bhut Jokula,
okay,
Jolokia rather, then it's a little bit more apparent where it's from. And for a long time, that kind of held the record as one of the spiciest peppers out there. It's not a naturally occurring pepper in the sense that almost no peppers are naturally occurring. Like potatoes, like today's potatoes, look nothing like the original potato from like the Andes.
What? 그래요?
Yeah, today's corn looks absolutely nothing like what ancient corn used to look like.
Cultivated?
It's cultivated, yeah.
Interesting.
And so, but it is a little bit more, or a little less engineered than, like, say, like the Carolina Reaper, which was made by one man in a lab. Doing experiments.
Why? 굳이 왜?
Oh, we'll get into that in a little bit, yeah. But there's a whole movement there. So the ghost pepper is a little over 1 million Scoville heat units, which is very, very spicy. I've never had one myself, but you can, just go online, go into, that video streaming service we all love. Just go to Ghost Pepper Challenge, One Chip Challenge, and just watch people's reactions to eating this pepper. And it looks evil. Like, it is small and gnarly and wrinkled. It looks like something that, we have a photo of it up right now.
Yeah.
It looks like something that wants to hurt you.
근데 또 어떤 분들은 they say that it has like medicinal properties. So it's used in traditional Ayurvedic medicine and things like that 진짜 그런 효과가 있을까요?
I think there's a lot of research to back that up. So yeah, Ayurveda uses capsaicin. It uses spiciness a lot. It's used as a pain relief method. And the guy who made the Carolina Reaper, he's one man. His name is Ed Curry. Goes by the nickname Smokin' Ed Curry. He kind of went down his path of cultivating peppers and hot sauces as a way to curb his alcoholism.
Oh,
right.
Wow.
So here's a quote for him. So, people who are prone to addictive behaviors, not just addicts, but thrill seekers and such, they get a rush they want to chase because the hotter you get, the more rush you get. So for him, he kind of put two and two together like, oh, I can kind of harness this need for something more
Sure.
in something that's healthier for me, because he's also of the belief that these compounds can also help fight cancers as well.
Interesting. 그런데 또 반면에 apparently the Indian army made a grenade from ghost peppers.
It is surprising. A lot of the world's spiciest mega super hots, they go into weapons.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Because 진짜 청양고추를 쓸면 그 손가락도 이제 매콤할 수도 있잖아요.
Right.
So imagine that like a million times that heat, then you would sneeze uncontrollably. You won't be able to see or anything like that. Apparently it creates intense fumes, and it's used to control riots and neutralize terrorists.
Yep. Pepper spray, is actually spray from extract of pepper. Yeah, I'm sure they can synthesize it, but the easiest way to do it is just to extract it from the natural pepper. Every man in Korea who's been to the military has experienced this. In basic training, you have to go through tear gas training. Wow. And a lot of tear gases are based off of natural peppers and extracted from them. So, like I said, in the Americas, I think, because the chili pepper originated somewhere between Mexico and Bolivia. They're not entirely sure where the original pepper's from, but that's the general area that it comes from. But surprisingly, not a lot of South America eats spicy.
그래요? South America?
So you have Mexico, which is which eats a lot of spicy food. They're one of the world's largest consumers of chiles. And then you have a couple of nations in the Caribbean, Jamaica and Trinidad specifically. So in Jamaica, they have the Scotch bonnet. Have you ever had jerk chicken before?
Yes.
And was it very spicy?
No, actually not a big fan of jerk chicken. Maybe because it's not spicy.
Well, I think it might be the allspice in there. It's kind of a cinnamony flavor in there, and I think but if you go and have like quote unquote authentic jerk chicken, it's very, very spicy.
그래요?
Yeah, they use Scotch bonnet peppers, which are kind of like habaneros.
Okay.
And then they'll put like a handful of them and blend it up and make a marinade, and it's extremely spicy.
Wow.
Same thing in Trinidad. They have the Moruga scorpion, which is spicier than the ghost pepper at 1.2 million.
Interesting. All these different countries around the world that enjoy spice, but where did the 후추 come from? 후추는 어디서 왔을까요?
That's right. Where is black pepper from?
Drumroll, please.
India.
Duh.
Right?
I
It's in my mind, it has to be either India or Indonesia. And because those were like the two big kind of stops along the spice trade, and of course India.
And somehow it's used everywhere.
Yeah.
Like universally, people use, even in Korea, 묵국에서 후추 넣어야 되거든요.
맞아요. 설렁탕.
설렁탕. Yeah, you have to have it all. Well, in any case, who'd have thunk 후추, black pepper, comes from India. Stick around, more is to come. We'll leave you guys with a quick song. Here is Jessie, 센 언니. Happy Wednesday. Join us in our journey. Did I say throwing it back on Thursday last time? I just realized because today I'm saying it's Wednesday. Oh my goodness. It is Happy Wednesday. Join us in our journey as we uncover where these peculiar menus come from around the world with our one and only Chef Matt in the studio on 맛댐 맛. 안녕하세요.
Hello.
All right, we are talking about spicy foods. People love it. People hate it. Interesting to know that Europe doesn't really do spice.
They don't, which is interesting just because like the spice trade was kind of flowed through there. There are some areas like southern Italy is known for their spiciness. Hungary is like, that's where, they came up with the word paprika.
Oh.
And so, but like by and large, and like a lot of weird like spiciness coming out of like the UK. Not traditionally, but you got those
Immigrants.
you got those crazy people out there, breeding like the 3 million Scoville heat unit peppers.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes when you're traveling out and about, you gotta carry on a little bottle of Tabasco, sriracha, or maybe even some black pepper. In any case, let's take a look at our second question.
Okay, so from which two countries are researchers using genetic engineering to create spicy tomatoes?
Ooh.
Naturally spicy tomatoes.
유전자 조작을 통하여 매운 토마토를 만든 두 나라가 있다고 하는데요. 이 두 나라는 어디일까요?
Okay, so a couple of hints. So this was a few years ago. This is, I think, 2018, 2019. I don't know if it ever happened because there were a couple of news articles that came out. Who knows? And I will give you a hint. These are two countries you don't associate with spicy food.
Okay, I was going to say maybe India again.
Right? Yeah.
Because 인도도 토마토를 엄청 많이 쓰잖아요.
Absolutely. I think people don't realize how many tomatoes, how common tomatoes are in Indian cuisine.
Yes, in everything.
Yeah, so the reason why is that because tomatoes are easier to cultivate and harvest. Chilies are comparatively labor intensive. A lot of them still have to be, kind of like pollinated or picked by hand. Tomatoes, because it's such a big thing, it's like largely automated. And they also kind of want to harness like the pain relief and the weight loss aspect of capsaicin. And like you said before, they also want to use this in the military-industrial complex, like because it's easier to harvest. It would make making like pepper sprays and like tear gases easier.
Oh, so I guess that's a huge industry enough to...
It is a huge industry. Yeah, non-lethal weaponry is a huge industry.
I mean, two shockers here. I didn't know that capsaicin can make you lose weight.
Apparently, I think it's the jury's out whether or not like it has a direct effect or if it has like an appetite suppressant or a satiety thing. So a lot of people argue that spicy food you feel fuller if you eat it, just because it's not. It doesn't make you feel full, but it makes you feel satisfied.
Oh, interesting.
But like they're not entirely sure why, but there is definitely a link there some way, somehow.
Maybe because you drink a lot of more water.
Could be too. That absolutely could be it. And yeah, and it's because like also tomatoes and chili peppers they developed from a common ancestor about 19 million years ago. So they're close enough. I think they can start to kind of engineer a little spiciness into these tomatoes.
Interesting. I mean, as we learned, potatoes and corn. It's not the same as it was before, so who's to say we can't create a new tomato?
It's definitely possible.
Okay. Since we are a language program, let's talk about some flexicon, shall we?
That's right.
Lexicon.
So let's talk about the word spicy itself. This one, we're going to talk about this in English, and then we're going to diverge to other languages. But one question I get often, spicy and hot. Is there a difference between the two words? And I'm going to say no. If you're talking about something 맵다, something being spicy. Some people will argue that, spicy means that there's a lot of spice to it. And hot only means that it's 뜨거워.
Oh, that is true.
It is technically true, and it is pedantic. And I think that it's not a reflection of how we use these words today.
That's true, because 마라 같은 경우에는 it's spicy, but it's 매운 맛은 아니잖아요. It's not
Sure.
hot.
So that word da, we'll get into that a little bit later. But that is actually a very specific form of spiciness.
Okay.
In Korea, we use 얼얼하다.
Yeah, but that's right. Yeah, but even like cinnamon spice 같은 경우에도.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's another form of spiciness. And so, but by and large, the way we use these two words today, spicy and hot, because even then, there's an American candy, Red Hots.
맞아요.
They don't have any capsaicin in them. They are purely cinnamon based, but they are spicy.
It's true.
Like the feeling that you get on your tongue, it's almost indistinguishable from the spiciness that you feel when you have, something based off of chili peppers.
Yeah, and it does numb your. Does have an 얼얼한, what do you call it? Texture sense to it as well.
It does, and so do cloves, and we'll get into that a little bit later too. So let's talk about if you're traveling around the world and you love spicy food. how would you ask, make my food extra spicy, please, in different countries?
Ooh, that's a good tip.
So I found this thread on a social media platform where like they were asking people all over the world, how do you say this in your country? And it sounds like, I didn't realize this. So linguistically, okay is probably one of the most common words used around the world. Extra, I didn't realize. Extra is also a word that's pretty universally used as well. So one person from Malaysia, so you're saying that in Malaysia and in other Malay-speaking countries, you'd use the term extra pedas.
Pedas
meaning spicy.
I would say more. I feel like more people would understand more.
More, yeah.
Rather than extra.
But I think the thing is like with extra, right? Like, because extra is a term that's used in a lot of like global marketing. So I think, I think that's the reason why. It's a relatively new, I think, addition to the global lexicon. And whereas I think in every country has their equivalent of the word more, as we'll see in Spanish. So one user said extra picante is probably the easiest way to ask for something spicier. Picante meaning spicy. Someone also said con mucho chile or con más chile, so with more chili or with lots of chili. And then in Spanish too, there also is this kind of interesting distinction between picante and caliente.
Yes.
Spicy versus hot.
맞아요.
So it's a little bit interesting because there is more of a clear delineation between spicy as in 맵다 and hot as in 뜨겁다. When talking about food, picante almost always means spicy or sharp. Caliente almost always refers to something that is hot. However, there are secondary definitions to these words that are often used when describing people or things,
맞아요.
which kind of overlap. So, caliente. Estoy caliente por ti.
Wow.
I am hot for you.
Wow. So that's like when you're attracted to somebody.
Yes, like I am hot. Like I feel it. Like I'm feeling a pull towards you. You know, you've got my heart fluttering. You know?
Sure.
Whereas picante kind of has similar kind of like, kind of like feelings of like more and like kind of extreme. It can mean anything from being like a little firecracker. So that small compact car in Korea that refers to a certain time of day.
Yes.
That's called the picanto. Outside of Korea, because it's small, it's like a little firecracker.
But it's fiery.
Yeah. It also can mean like risque, as in like, it can mean like, kind of like edging the lines of decency. Like,
okay.
El comediante con muchos chistes picantes. He's making a lot of risque jokes.
Okay.
His jokes are spicy.
Yeah. Do we say that in English?
You can say like, ooh, that's spicy. That's a spicy take.
Yeah.
That's something that I think is a more recent thing. It's like, ooh, that's a spicy take. That is an unpopular opinion.
Right.
And then it can also mean sharp when it's most oftentimes paired with críticas picantes. So it's sharp criticism of something.
Sharp opinion.
Yep.
Interesting.
It could also mean like a little zip, a little zing, a little pep in their step. Le falta picante needs a little bit more zip to it. It needs a little bit more zhuzh to it.
More zhuzh. How do you spell zhuzh?
J-J-U-Z-Z.
I like it. Lots of different ways to describe spicy, hot, picante, caliente. Send us in all your, I guess, favorite languages of how to say spicy or hot. 여러분 어떤 언어로 맵다, 뜨겁다 라는 거를 아시면 샵 1013으로 보내주시길 바랍니다. In any case, here's Little Mix with Wasabi. Wasabi, Little Mix. Who else sings about spice?
Right?
There's a lot.
Yeah. Off the top of my head.
I mean, I'm so hot. 난 너무 예뻐요.
Hot, 뜨거, hot, 뜨거, hot.
Yeah. We're talking about 매운맛 all around the world and, of course, how to say it as well. But before we move on, here's our question once again. 유전자 조작을 통하여 매운 토마토를 만든 두 나라가 있다고 하는데요. 이 두 나라는 과연 어디일까요?
That's right. From which two countries are researchers using genetic engineering to create spicy tomatoes?
All right. Coming back to spicy versus hot. So many different ways to describe the sensation that we are feeling.
That's right. In Korea, we have probably more than just about any other country.
맞아요. 진짜.
We have 맵다, 매우다, 칼칼하다. So 칼칼하다, if you're not familiar with this term, it's more of like a kind of a sharp spiciness that you feel in the back of your throat.
Knife,
Yeah,
하다.
it's the spices that makes you go afterwards after you eat it. It's like it's like
Is that where it comes from?
I have to imagine it has to. Like I'm not entirely 100% sure, but it is almost kind of like
onomatopoeia.
almost like exclusively used for like a sharp spiciness,
Yes.
one that you feel in the throat.
Yes.
It's not like the burning kind of like tingling fire in your mouth. It's in the back of the throat. 얼큰하다 is one that's almost exclusively used for soups and liquid-based
Right.
like spiciness.
And I think this would be like 기분 좋은 맛.
Yeah.
Like it makes you feel good. It satisfies you.
얼큰하다 is almost always paired with 시원하다, I feel
Yeah.
like. Yeah.
Right. 얼큰한 국물 땡긴다. I just
Yep.
want some good. Now I'm hungry. Oh
I'm
my
starving.
gosh.
Yeah, there's 불맛 난다, which is not, I think, a very common like way of saying things, but it's commonly used, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I say this all the time. This is a form of compliment, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah. It's
me.
weird. It's not like a quote-unquote official term, but it's really widely used.
Yeah, so if you can taste the fire, I mean, compliments to the chef.
Sure. There's also 알싸하다.
알싸하다.
I just learned this one.
I don't know this one.
Yeah, so this one, it's a term that also could be used for people or experiences as well. And it's also a term that, while meaning spicy, it's oftentimes used to kind of describe like a pepper, like black pepper, or like a 연겨자 type of like spiciness as well.
Yeah, gyoja is a fascinating spice as well. Also, I didn't like gyoja mustard when I was younger, and now acquired taste. Love it.
Oh, I mustard, like I love the taste, especially like 연겨자 versus like Western gyoja. It's so much sharper. So here's the definition of 알싸하다. 매운맛이나 독한 냄새 따위로 코 속이나 혀 끝에 알아라라. So it's like so it specifically refers to like the nose as well, like you know the sinuses.
이거는 진짜 gyoja랑 고추냉이 같은 게 그 best example.
Absolutely. So like you can also use like especially in like 경상도 you can say 저 사람이 성격이 참 알싸하다. 저 사람 성격이 참 외골수다.
Oh, I don't imagine it to be the best connotation.
I
to
don't
it.
think so.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely not something that you would take as a compliment. We also have this term we mentioned before, 얼얼하다,
얼얼하다.
which is a term that I feel like English is sorely lacking. It's the numbing spice.
Yeah.
In Mandarin, it's ma, of course, you know, the ma and mala. And there are spices that are numbing outside of the Chinese, like, was it Sichuan pepper?
Okay.
Have you seen jambu? It's also known as the buzz button or a Sichuan button.
No.
It's not from China, but it's called the Sichuan button because it has a very similar numbing effect to the Sichuan pepper. It's a flower. It looks like something out of Avatar.
아, 진짜요?
Yeah, it's a very bizarre look. It's like yellow and dotted. It's got all the. It looks like an alien
Is
flower.
it a fruit?
It's a flower. It's native to Brazil in the Amazon, and it's oftentimes and traditionally used in soups, but also used to infuse different spirits. Like in Brazil, they have a spirit known as cachaça,
Okay.
and that's sugarcane based. It's kind of like similar to rum, and they'll use that, and it's also used in salads. And it was popularized in the 2010s when a bar owner infused it into a spirit and then started making cocktails with it.
Spicy cocktails?
That's right, and so the whole thing is just that it's like it's a very kind of extreme tingly flavor, and it's supposed to make in a lot of people's words kissing a more
sensation.
an added sensation to kissing.
I don't know if I'd like that.
Yeah, it feels a little. I'm not entirely sure if that's something I want my cocktails to be doing.
I mean, I think you can sell a story of, in anything, make it, more kissable. But imagine having somebody kiss you after eating garlic or anything spicy. You kind of just get that up your nose, in your mouth. It's just too much.
It's like I kissed him and then I tasted mustard.
Tasted what he had for dinner.
All right. You mentioned cinnamon before, but one spice that has an actual numbing effect, also used in Ayurveda, quite commonly, is clove. Have you ever had like a massage done using clove oil?
No.
Oh, it's a phenomenal. It kind of feels like pasta, but a little bit warmer. So while eaten in small amounts, so it's kind of used in pumpkin lattes and chai as well. It doesn't have that numbing effect, but if you eat one whole, which I don't recommend because it's very extreme, but more commonly in oil form. So it's used in Chinese medicine and in Indian Ayurveda, and they'll use it for pain relief because it has a numbing effect.
Interesting. Yeah, it's to have. I mean, don't people have like ingest cayenne pepper pills and things like that?
Yeah. So and there are like pure capsaicin pills oftentimes, and those are most often marketed to people who have arthritis. I don't know if it works, but I remember in the U.S. they had like a lot of like commercials for that in the 2000s. Before we go, the big daddy of the numbing was its spices though is Sichuan peppercorn, in Korean known as chopi or hwajao or sancho, and there is a difference between two of these.
아, 그래요?
So chopi is 한국어 and hwajao is the Sichuan peppercorn. There is sancho, which is related but not exactly the same thing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it's confusing because in Japanese it's sancho, and they do mean the same thing.
Oh.
And the English term for this is sancho, and that only refers to the Japanese one. So that's what makes it extra confusing.
Yeah, super confusing. For me, I don't think I need to know it. I'm not a big fan of peppercorn. Or maybe I do need to know it just to spot it on the menu and be like,
that is true.
No chopi or sancho.
Well, do you like mapadubu?
Sometimes, if done right.
If it doesn't have the chopi in it.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's great. It's super saucy.
Right.
Love it.
So it's commonly found in Korea. It's native to like a lot of East Asia. And there are areas where, prior to the introduction of gochu to Korea, it was used in kimchi making, and it still is in certain regions. Around Jirishan is where it grows a lot naturally. And in Gyeongsangdo, it's probably seen most often today. And there you'll find it as jepi. Jepi is a local saturi for chopi.
Well, there you go. I mean, so much to learn about spice. Whether you love it or hate it, you got to know about it so you can eat it or avoid it as you are traveling around the world as well. Well, in any case, back to our question. 유전자 조작을 통하여 매운 토마토를 만드는 두 나라가 있다고 하는데요. 이 두 나라는 과연 어디일까요?
That's right. From which two countries are researchers using genetic engineering to create spicy tomatoes?
Drum roll, please.
Ireland and Brazil.
Ireland and Brazil.
Like I said, two countries not known for their spicy food, but
I mean, Brazil and more. I mean, I can try to squeeze it in there.
their food is not very spicy. It
Is
turns out.
it?
No, there's like one specific region in Brazil that's known for their spicy food, but by and large, again, kind of like on one social media thread where they're asking like how tolerant of spice is your country. One user said, Brazilians, when they travel to California, they always complain, why is the food so spicy?
진짜요?
Anecdotal from one user, but apparently that's that's how low the Brazilian spice tolerance
But I
is.
mean, Brazilian food is a lot of, I mean, I'm talking about barbecue though, but it has so much meat. I have to have some sort of kicker with meat.
I agree. It's a little accent on the meat, right?
Yes, yeah. And then Ireland, I mean, maybe it's the whiskey that they want to.
That's the sharpness. That's where they get their heat from.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I mean, talking about spice, since we do have a little bit of time, even kimchi, for example, something that is, ubiquitous here in Korea, well known. We didn't have spicy kimchi until fairly recently.
Late 17th century is when the gochu was introduced to Korea. There is a little controversy surrounding that, but the general consensus seems to be it was brought through Franciscan monks from Portugal.
Really?
So by way of Central and South America, again. Not, the general consensus is that, that's where it's from. But yeah, for a long time, kimchi was either just like baekgimchi or like, more of like a 젓갈-based kimchi, or
Right.
like we've discovered in like the Jirishan area, they would use chopi, jepi, sancho in their kimchi as well to give it a little kick. It also has preservative effects. When it comes to food, spice.
아, 그래요?
Again, the jury is kind of out, so that's why if you look at a map of the world where they eat a lot of spicy, it tends to be hotter countries. But I think I prefer the theory that it's not because it helps food not spoil. These countries eat a lot of spicy food because chiles grow well in these areas.
Could be true.
Korea is, probably one of the more northern countries in which gochu grows really well here.
We have good soil.
We have good soil, and it requires to have a certain amount of heat, certain amount of rainfall, but also a certain amount of dryness.
Right.
And not a lot of countries fit that bill. So it's one of the reasons why you don't see a lot of European countries eat a lot of spice simply because chili peppers don't grow very well in those regions. You can't. You don't see German chilies.
I don't want to see German chilies either. Well, in any case, specialization. It's probably best to know that certain places do just certain things a lot better. Well, in any case, Chef Matt, thank you once again. 덕분에 너무 즐거운 시간을 보냈습니다. We'll have to see you again next week.
See you then.
We'll leave you guys with our last song. Speaking of spice, here's the Spice Girls. Spice up your life. 여러분, 내일 봬요.